Good evening and welcome. I am Terry Kay of the Jewish Grandparents Network. Thank you for joining us tonight for connecting with your teen grandchild in the age of social media. Sarah, I'm going to ask you if you can admit the people who are in the waiting room. Thank you so much. We so appreciate that you made the time to join us. Tonight, we are thrilled to partner with our good friends from the Jewish Education Project in New York for this important conversation. First, a big thank you to you, Sarah Reed, our JGN colleague, who helps us facilitate and is everything tech at our organization. Sarah has shared with us in chat how to turn on captions for those who wish to use that feature. Now it is my great pleasure to welcome our wonderful presenters tonight. Rivkah Hruby is a Jewish educator with nearly 30 years of teaching, curriculum writing, and professional development experience. Rivkah serves as Senior Manager of National Teen Education and Engagement at the Jewish Education Project. She is also the founder of Anchored Parenting LLC, where she is a parent, educator, and coach. Rivkah Schack is the Senior Managing Director of Educational Technology and Digital Strategy at the Jewish Education Project, where she leads national initiatives in AI integration, digital learning, and micro-credentialing for Jewish educators. With over 3 decades of experience in Jewish, Montessori, and classical education, Rivkah has founded 2 schools, built learning models, and directed educator training organizations. Now, with my greatest pleasure and all our thanks, over to you, Rivkah and Rivkah.
Everyone can see my screen? Yep. Okay, great. Hi, everybody. Welcome. I will say that Terry gave me such a great introduction. I don't really have to say much about myself, but I do want to say that I'm a parent of 4 young adults. And to me, that is the reason I'm here tonight, more than just the fact that I play this role at the intersection of EdTech and digital strategy for my organization. And I'm deeply invested in helping adults understand a little bit more about the digital world that shapes our children's and grandchildren's lives. Erica?
Hi there. Yes, Terry really said it all, but I'm Rivkah Hruby, the Senior Manager of National Teen Education and Engagement Initiatives at the Jewish Education Project. The majority of my work really focuses on supporting professionals who work with Jewish tweens and teens through providing professional development, networking, coaching, and consulting. And I do that through my private business as well, working with parents of tweens and teens themselves, and occasionally grandparents too.
And before we get started and sort of dive into the content of tonight, we each wanted to share something a little bit more personal about why this topic is so special to us. First of all, this is a photo of my kids and their Bubby and Papa Max. My kids are now in their 20s, 21, 23, 25, and 27. And they came of age at a time when smartphones were just beginning to sort of explode on the market and were being used by tweens and teens. And this past month, for the first time since they all launched into adulthood, each of them was in a completely different part of the world. One was in Israel, one was in Italy, one was in Hungary, one was in Mexico, and my husband and I were in Denmark, all at the same time. And my husband and I couldn't help but keep remarking that we felt more connected to them than we ever do, even though they live in the same city that we do. And why? Because in our family, we've always tried to sort of position technology as a tool for closeness. That's part of the culture of our family. Even when we're far apart, we use texting and WhatsApp and Instagram to share voice notes and goofy memes and photos and updates. And our grandparents are also part of that culture. They're always in these particular places that my husband and I have set up with them. And so that was a pretty exciting moment of our summer. And it made me think about how, as a parent and an educator, I've learned that when I engage with young people, when they were young people, on their own terms, even in very small ways, that actually builds a bridge between us. And that's why this topic is very important to me, because no matter what technology comes into being, I still believe that we as humans should always protect that very human way of connection that we have. Erica?
And on the right side is a picture of me with my two daughters. They are 23, Lila in the front, and 28, Zipporah in the back. I do have to say here, even though it isn't part of my notes, that I'm proud to say that both of my daughters are Jewish professionals as well. My oldest daughter is a PJ Library professional in the Orlando area, and my youngest daughter works for JFNA in the Changemakers program. So what I wanted to share is that really, since both of my daughters got their phones, it was really important for me to make sure that I was engaged with how they were using technology, and that I better understood what it was that they were using and the ways in which they were using it, in order to allow me to be able to support and guide them. Now I have apps and communication threads with one of them, with both of them, with both of them and a friend, with both of them and my husband, and so on. And we love to share TikTok videos and memes and current events and more. And I even try to keep up our TikTok streaks. I don't know if you know what that is, but basically every day, if you send a TikTok or post an emoji on something that somebody has sent you, it's like exciting and wonderful. And if you forget a day, they're like, hey, remember you wanted to send this person something. So it reminds you to keep in touch that way. And look, everything that I'm doing with them, I could do on text. It would be so much easier. I could get rid of all the apps if I wanted to. But it's important that I and we really, as parents, as grandparents, engage with young people in the way that they want to engage, and that we're aware of and utilize technology, screens, social media, in the ways that they use them to the best of our ability. And they both love to call me out, especially now with all the AI videos that are coming out. The other day, I shared a video thinking I was so cute, shared a video of a bunch of rabbits jumping on a trampoline, and the response from my youngest daughter, and it was texted, not said, but what it was, the way in which it was said, I know, was AI mom. Back to
So
you.
tonight, as we go forward, we also just want to make, I'm going to add one more thing to what Erica was saying. We want to make it really like a really important point that we don't think that you as grandparents need to know a lot about tech or use a lot of fancy apps to have closeness with your grandchildren. You already bring something that's more important, which is the love and the curiosity and the desire to be connected to them. And that matters a lot. It's really just that they need to know that you care enough to try and that you're interested in what's special about their life, which we're going to go into some detail right now. And so a little housekeeping before we get started. For the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to present some background information about the online life of teens, tweens, and teens. And then I'm going to invite you to put questions in the chat, which I think Terry is going to be monitoring for us. And then I'm going to turn things over to Erica for a more in-depth conversation in which we're going to take some of the themes that you posted in the chat and apply them to real-world scenarios. So go ahead and do that now. That way we can continue getting through the content at the beginning. And then one other thing I want to mention is that we have a discussion guide that we're going to put a link in the chat for. And the discussion guide has all the content of things we're going to talk about tonight. So if you get a hold of that discussion guide, you won't have to take notes tonight. You could just focus on the things that we're saying and on the discussions we have when we get to the part with Erica. So let's get started. Let's start with a bit of a mindset shift. The way that teens use technology isn't just different because they're younger. It's actually different because they're wired differently. Adolescents or young people have brains and needs and goals that are at a completely different stage of development than we as adults have. So when we think of, oh, I went to YouTube, or I'm online searching for something, or I'm using a particular app, even if I'm using the exact same technology as a teenager, neither of us are having the same experience. Because in adolescence, identity is one of the most important parts of their experience, and identity formation is central to their being in some way. Teens are exploring who they are and who they're becoming and how others perceive them in a way that we don't experience now as older people or adults. I'll give you a little bit of a research bite, which is according to a recent 2022 Pew Research study, 95% of teens have access to a smartphone, and 46% of them report that they're actually online almost constantly. That's what they call it, almost constantly. It's never far from their hands. They're always, picking it up and scrolling. If there's a moment of quiet, if there's a moment in a line, if they're sitting in the car, they're immediately on it, and they report feeling like they're on it constantly. But what they're really doing online isn't just being online or holding a smartphone. It's not passive consumption. It's actually active construction of self, because what they're doing online is actually socializing. There's like a social component to it that has opened an entire world for them in that little device. So social media, for example, is like a stage. Teens are posting photos, not just because they want to share, they're actually waiting and gauging the feedback and refining how they want to be seen every single time they're interacting with that social media app. And developmentally, when we think about it, that sort of makes sense, right? The adolescent brain is wired for a type of peer approval and social sensitivity. Like if you remember back when you were 15, 16, 17 years old, you were very sensitive to the way people looked at you or how they felt about your clothes or what they mentioned about something you said. And you might have even remember some embarrassing moments you had when you were a teenager. And it really counts. Like you can still feel, I'm in my 50s, I still feel when I think of those particular instances of how deep they were for me. So because of this, likes and views and responses online are intense, and they're intensely meaningful to teenagers. And so here's where it really diverges from our adult experience. When we scroll, we might be doing practical, productive things, right? We're looking for the news, we're answering our emails, maybe we're unwinding, we're watching a show on Netflix. But for teens, that's where their friendships are happening. So as their relationships grow online, this is actually shaping their emotional world. I'm going to give you another little bit of statistic. In Common Sense Media's 2023 report, they found that 62% of teens say that social media makes them feel more connected to their friends. That's the way they see that particular activity. And 47% of them say that it helps them feel less alone. So when we say things like, just put the phone away, or, you're on the screen too much, one of the things they're feeling from that statement is step away from your community, step away from your expression, step away from those activities that feel so good to you online that connect you to others. And that, of course, doesn't mean that we shouldn't have boundaries. It just means that we should engage with empathy because we're understanding what the experience is for them. So again, it's not just screen time, it's like social time and emotional time for them. Now, it's easy to group tweens and teens together when we think about kids and technology, but really they're in different places developmentally, so that's also important to take into account. Tweens are around the ages of 8 to 12, and they're just beginning to explore their digital life, right? They're usually using controlled platforms like YouTube Kids or Roblox or Minecraft with friends online playing a game, or maybe they're messaging or texting from a simple type of phone where they're able to have a text ring with family or friends. So at this stage, they're really heavily relying on adults to set boundaries and to sort of manage their access to those particular experiences. But they are also more vulnerable to external threats because things like external threats like strangers, scams, exposure to inappropriate content. And that's because emotional regulation is still emerging for them at that age, which means that they might not even recognize there is a danger, and they might not know how to respond. And much of their digital behavior mimics things they see in older siblings or potential influencers who are doing things, let's say on YouTube. They demonstrate something and they want to copy it and they want to be like them. So teens, by contrast, live online. Like, their devices aren't just for fun. They're actually how they socialize, express themselves, build their independence. And they're usually using multiple platforms all at the same time without adults watching. And they care a lot about privacy and peer approval. So the risk shifts here too, because teens are more susceptible to internal struggles, right? Which is like anxiety or comparison or identity issues, especially in spaces where they're sort of working on curating how they appear to others. So the highs and lows that they might experience when using Instagram or any of these apps come because of the likes and the comments and the algorithms they're experiencing in those applications or platforms. So while both groups might be using screens, what they need from us is different. Tweens need boundaries, they need structure, and they need supervision. And teens need conversation, very subtle and gentle conversation, trust, and safe space to process what they're experiencing when they're in those online platforms. And I just want to mention that we should at this point talk about one other hidden force that's shaping how kids are using technology that isn't always brought to the surface. And thank you, Terry, for passing on this latest Atlantic article. Some of you might have seen this, and it included a March 2025 Harris poll of kids ages 8 to 12, because these are the budding tweens who are coming into the world of having an online life. And they reported most of them already, we probably expect, owned smartphones. But half of the 10 to 12-year-olds said that most or all of their friends are also on social media, which is very young for what we would have seen in probably previous years. And that 75% say that they regularly use Roblox, often to connect with friends or strangers. So they're starting to socialize online by playing games. And here's the twist. When they're asked what they really wanted to be doing, most of the kids said they would prefer to meet up in person without screens and without adults hovering to make boundaries. So think for a minute. For many tweens, that kind of freedom doesn't really exist anymore. They're not usually allowed to go biking freely to a friend's house or go to the park alone or just hang out face to face, because our social spaces are changing and our sense of safety around our kids being out in the world has changed. So what do they do then? They're turning to the only space where they can socialize freely, especially post-pandemic, which is their phones or their devices. So when we think about screen time, I think we also have to look at the bigger picture. Like, kids are not just addicted to screens, they are also starved for connection and freedom. And the connection is something that we all can offer, and especially you as grandparents who have a particular unique relationship in tweens and teens' lives. So with all of that said, we're going to take a little bit of a tour through the most popular platforms that teens are using today, because this is speaking to what Erica mentioned earlier. This helps us understand a little bit more about what these platforms offer, what their experience is like, and what are the risks that are associated with these various platforms that we as adults in their lives need to be sort of mindful of. And you might be wondering, well, why haven't I heard of these apps, or why don't I use these apps, or why aren't they using Facebook anymore? And that's exactly the point. Teens don't actually choose platforms based on their features. They choose them based on social energy. They don't follow tech, they follow people. Like, where are their friends and where are the influencers drawing them? So we're gonna look a little bit about what's in for teens. And right now, teens are mostly into platforms like TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, YouTube, Discord, and group chats. And they've largely left behind Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, email. Those aren't cool anymore because they feel sort of clunky and outdated, and they're full of adults. And that's a big piece of it, right? Like, once parents start using a platform, teens are off, like they're moving on because they want autonomy and they want a sense of a space that belongs to them. And Facebook is where their moms post photo albums, and email is for school, and like Twitter is for journalists and arguments about politics. So teens want something that feels like faster and visual and private and even chaotic. So the platforms that they choose are not random. They are driven by their developmental needs, like private space, peer validation, identity exploration, instant connection. And so these platforms I'm about to show you really serve those needs. And unfortunately, they serve those needs in self-serving ways, right? People are making money from it, right? So the first one we're going to talk about is TikTok. And the reason is because TikTok is the most culturally dominant platform for teens today. And you can see on each one of these slides, I'm showing you some sort of screenshots from the Apple App Store. And this is my first tip to you. If your teen grandchild says to you, oh, there's this new app I joined, it's X, whatever that is, not X, but some platform. One of the ways that you can find out what that platform is really about is to go into the Apple App Store on your phone, because you can see a complete description of what that app does, and you can see little screenshots of each of its features. That's one of the things you can see there. So I'm showing you the Apple App Store version of these. And only about 67% of teens use TikTok, right? So you might say, oh, YouTube, everyone uses YouTube. It's like 95%. Why is TikTok the most dominant platform? It's because it's where the trends start. This is the platform where language and fashion and memes and what's in and out start to take off like wildfire. And what makes TikTok so different is it has a very powerful algorithm that offers teens more and more and more content based on what it's seeing in their behaviors on the platform. And it doesn't just show you content from your friends, it starts to learn what you linger on, how often you change the screen, and it starts to give you more of that. And some teens have even, many teens describe it as scary accurate. Like, it's so accurate to what I heard, said, want to see again, that you start to feel like it understands you. And that could be comforting, right? Especially in moments when you might feel isolated or uncertain. But that same strength is also one of its biggest risks, because within minutes of signing up, teens, and especially girls, are usually shown content related to weight loss, disordered eating, beauty filters, and those things once shown, and then when you begin to use the algorithm and there's no stopping of the scrolling, teens start to be stuck on TikTok for quite some time. In fact, I think the current statistic is that teens who use it, the 67%, average over 95 minutes a day on TikTok. So it's like a dopamine loop. Swipe, react, swipe, react, swipe, react. That's what they're doing when they're on the TikTok. And so the one last thing I want to say about it is the content isn't, often developmentally appropriate. So a TikTok doesn't offer a 13-year-old girl and a 19-year-old girl the same content. If you log into TikTok as a 13-year-old, you're going to see quite a lot of inappropriate content that really has no moderation for the age. The next one I'm going to present is Snapchat. Snapchat is all about snaps. And this was kind of, you might have heard people talking about what a snap is. It's actually a photo or a message that disappears after it's viewed one time, which for teens is part of what makes it feel safe, right? Because it's not permanent, it's not public, it's not there forever. It's just between us. The minute you see it, it disappears and you can't take a screenshot of it. So they're using this to talk to their closest friends constantly, and they maintain what's called snap streaks, which is very similar to what Erica described. Streaks are daily exchanges where both people have to snap to each other each day in order to keep up the streak. And if you imagine, what is that experience like for a teenager? To a teen, breaking a streak can feel like it's breaking trust. And that is one of the things that we have seen is like a negative behavior among people, like, oh, we have a streak of 100 days. If you break the streak, you broke my streak too. So like, now we're not in the same relationship anymore. And there are a few other risks like disappearing nature of messages makes it easier for teens to send things that they wouldn't necessarily say out loud, including inappropriate content or impulsive messages. And since it vanishes, parents don't have any way of knowing what happened in that app, right? It's gone. Like even if you open up their phone and you looked in Snapchat, you wouldn't see any of it. So Snapchat is where there can be some subtle exclusion or bullying, and a teen might see that they're not included in someone's private story, or they might be ignored in a Snapchat group, and that emotional feeling can be really hurtful to them. And the last feature I just want to say is there's something called a Snap Map, which means that you and all of the friends that agreed to be in a group can see where you are with live location turned on, which could be fun, but some teens are really sharing their location constantly without really thinking about who's watching. So that might be a sort of harmful part of Snapchat, and it is something that needs to be sort of monitored. Instagram, probably a lot of you might already have an Instagram account, especially if you're following things that are going on with your family and you want to see things that people are sharing out. And Instagram is still a major force in teen life, even though its popularity is starting to wane. 62% of US teens still use it. And the special thing about Instagram is that teens use it for curation. They use it to build an image. Here, you are posting in a way that shows how you want to pose with exactly what filter you choose, and it's allowing you to set up how you are perceived by people on the outside. And that's maybe you would say that sounds sort of vain, but obviously this is another part of that developmental need to form an identity. So how do I fit in means that I can actually create a persona of myself on Instagram that I'm very carefully curating. Here's some of the costs that we know based on numbers. Meta's own leaked research in 2021 revealed that Instagram worsens body image issues for 1 to 3 teens who use the platform. Teens compare themselves constantly to influencers or to peers or to even poses or posts that they did in the past. And this causes them to have a sense of feeling always nervous about the way they're showing up and the way that they're presenting themselves. And Instagram has a feature called Reels, which is sort of like Meta's answer to TikTok, that can quickly serve up videos tied to beauty standards or dieting trends or unrealistic lifestyles. And so that is something that teens are constantly being exposed to that is also based on an algorithm. There's also something that you might hear that's called Finsta. This is a term for a private or a fake account that just close friends have, where they could post casually and no one knows about it. But obviously, if you have a Finsta and you have a public account, that's kind of a fractioning of the public image you're giving some people versus the private image you're giving others. And it creates confusion. Who are you? Are you this persona or this persona? So curating one's Instagram profile is part of that issue of giving pressure to teens for feeling that they always need to have sort of like an external face. YouTube is the most used platform among teens. 95% of them say they use it. It makes them, and you might feel as an adult through your experience, okay, this is benign, right? Like this is where you can find DIY project videos, or, you can see, maybe teens could get help with homework or even see music videos. So it's familiar to adults, so sometimes we overlook it, but the reality is that actually YouTube is a gateway to almost everything, right? It has a very powerful algorithm, and teens might start with a video about a makeup look and then be only 5 clicks away from what I eat in a day content that promotes unhealthy standards. Or let's say, based on research from Mozilla in 2022, there is a real problem with the system that leads teens towards extremism on YouTube. Extreme political content, extreme conspiracy theories, harmful information, because as soon as they begin watching videos on a particular topic, the algorithm continues to feed that to them almost exclusively. So it continues wearing and wearing until almost nothing else is showing up on YouTube except for the top 2 or 3 things that you watch. And you can imagine if somebody is down the road of many, many conspiracy theories, it's continuing to feed that information back to them as if it's truthful. There's one last thing about YouTube, which is it encourages a bit of a parasocial relationship sometimes with YouTubers, right? Which is like these creators can feel like they're your friend, they're your mentor, they're like a role model to you. They might even be inspiring, but they're also potentially distorting expectations around things like success or identity because they're putting up a front that teens are accepting as if that's the real person that's in front of them. Very quickly, one last app, and that's Discord. Many of you may have heard of Discord, and I know it's not like really a traditional social media app. It's more like a digital community type of platform. But teens use Discord in private servers, and the private servers are like around shared interests, maybe gaming or politics or music or anime. And each of the servers has a lot of voice channels and text channels that teens can use as like a communication hub, basically. They could use that instead of texting. And it's particularly popular among boys, especially boys who are in online gaming culture. But it's also growing in interest around in many other areas. And what's the risk of Discord? Mainly that the servers are not moderated. And so teens could encounter hate speech, graphic content, harassment, maybe adults pretending to be teens. That has happened a lot in Discord, like grooming, predators who are there to just build relationships with teens over time. So because Discord isn't visible like some of the other apps, many adults don't know that it exists. So the takeaway here is just awareness. Like if your grandchild mentions Discord or seems really invested in an online group, it's worth sort of gently knowing together as a family what role that plays in their life. And I couldn't end by also saying good old-fashioned texting, right? Like texting in your phone or WhatsApp, which might not feel like a platform, obviously, but for teens, group texts and iMessages are like part of the main stage of their social lives. They're in lots of groups at once. Some of them have 2 friends, 3 friends, 15 friends. And this is where they're doing a lot of, sharing of the quick content, like quick memes, quick selfies, quick videos. And the only problem with that is if you go away from your phone for an hour to go do something with your family and you come back, you might have 300 messages you have to catch up on. And that comes with a lot of pressure. There's like a pressure to respond fast, especially among friends. So if you're slow to reply, maybe you're going to get called out or even left out of something. So you might have FOMO, like fear of missing out that something's going on that chat. And also there's exclusion. If a group of people decide in very subtle ways, I'm sorry, we're removing you from the chat, or we're going to create a chat over here that you don't even know about. And maybe the next day in school, you actually find out about it. You would feel probably very deeply hurt. So the last thing I'll say about texting, though, is screenshots. Teens often take receipts of conversations and then they'll share them in other places. Like if Erica and I were on a text string together, I'd snap a picture of what we said to each other and then send it to somebody else. And so sometimes that could be sort of gossip. It could turn into private messages that turn into public drama pretty fast. So even though chats can be intense, they are also a good way that we as adults can start with a first step into the online lives of teens, because they're often willing to text us even if we're not members of some of the other platforms that they're using in a general way. Okay, so I hope that was a good drive through on sort of like the general online world of teens. And now Erica is going to bring us sort of back to the real world and sort of walk us through a few relatable scenarios. And then we'll talk about them. You ready, Erica?
Yes, thank you, Rivkah. That was so much information, but really important information. And I love, Rivkah, that you really put it into the perspective, I think, of grandparents and sort of giving them a bird's eye view of what their grandchildren might be doing and seeing online. So thank you. So as Rivkah said, I'm going to walk you through 2 scenarios. Each scenario, we're going to go over 4 specific questions associated with that scenario. I'm going to be doing a lot of talking and sharing, but I promise after each scenario, I'm going to pause and then we'll have a little bit of conversation around it. Please continue to put your questions in the chat. We'll see how many we might be able to get to at the end of our session. So really the point of using, oh, sorry.
Can I jump in? Excuse me for one moment. There are a lot of questions. So in addition to questions about the scenario, would you give me an opportunity to ask some of our participants questions?
Yes, and I think some of them are going to be answered here, but yes, we can pop into a few others. And when we do go to the participant questions, I'll invite Rivkah back into the room to see if we can share those responses. So Terry, just stop me whenever you think I should. Otherwise, I'll move through what I have planned, and then we'll pause at the end. Of each scenario. So basically the point is when we're looking at scenarios, it's a great way for us to be able to understand how we can interact and how you can express yourself as a grandparent to achieve the best results. Some of the insights that I'm going to share with you, I'll give you very specific suggestions of how to use language to leverage your relationship and express your opinions. The first scenario is going to focus on a tween who's spending a lot of time playing video games. And the second scenario is going to be an older teen who is experiencing or showing some emotional reaction and mood changes related to their social media engagement. Many of the recommendations that I give, I'm giving them within the context of each scenario, but they actually live in both scenarios as well as things that are happening outside of the scenarios that we're going to discuss. And again, when you look at the discussion guide, there may be some tips and tricks for you to access there as well. So I'm going to just read the screen for the scenario 1, and then we'll stop sharing so that you can have the full screen of me. Not that you need it. So scenario 1, your 10-year-old grandchild seems to be playing video games every time you call or visit. You're worried that they are spending so much time on video games that they might be isolating from the outside world and missing out on social connections. The questions that we're going to explore here related specifically to this scenario are, I'm going to read the questions and then we're going to go through each of them. 1, what do grandparents need to know about the social nature of gaming? Rivkah touched on some of it. I'm going to touch on a little bit more. Question 2, what behaviors are healthy and what behaviors are warning signs that gaming may be having a harmful impact on your grandchild? Question 3, how can grandparents appropriately approach their adult child with their concern? And question 4, how can grandparents approach their grandchild about their concern while maintaining trust and building on that relationship? So let's go to question 1 if we want to. Okay, perfect. So question 1, what do grandparents need to know about the social nature of gaming? So for young people, being online is being social. Gaming is a major way that kids build relationships, explore their identity, and also relax and decompress. It's also a way to counteract boredom. Whenever they're on any screen, it's an easy way to counteract boredom just by having something in their hands and something occupying their mind. Gaming is much more about connection these days than social withdrawal or avoidance. What it may look like when your grandchild is playing a video game is that they're sitting alone in a room, headphones on, fully focused on the screen. But what may actually be happening is many games today are built for real-time collaboration and communication. Obviously, as Rivkah shared, some of that comes with risk, but your grandchild may be playing and talking with friends, some local, some from school, and maybe some others that they've never actually met before, but they have a similar shared interest in a particular game. Because we know that gaming can be very social, gaming platforms like Minecraft, Fortnite, Roblox are just a few to name, often include teamwork, planning, problem solving, strategizing. These games are digital playgrounds where kids hang out, not just for play. Many of these you can think of as sort of the modern version of hanging out on the phone for hours or going to the mall. It's their playground. What I want to suggest is one piece of understanding that grandparents can have when they're looking at and wondering about what may be happening in their grandchild's video gaming space is to really lean into curiosity. You're going to hear me say curiosity several times in lots of different scenarios, but it's important that when we're curious about what's happening, it tends to leave out judgment. So we want to make sure that you're asking your grandchild to show you what they play and to share why they may enjoy the game that they play. You may be surprised by the creativity or the storytelling or the teamwork that's actually involved. When we're engaging with our grandchildren in a way of curiosity, it helps to build trust and understanding. So it could sound like, I don't get games like you do, but I'd love to see what you're into. And we want to just be careful not to frame gaming as bad or a waste of time, because as Rivkah shared, in many cases, gaming really is their social space. It is productive. It is a way that they can fill time and feel good about who they are. So when things are framed as bad or wasted, that judgment may actually shut down and break down communication. The second question is, what behaviors are healthy and what behaviors are warning signs that gaming may have a harmful impact on your grandchild? So some of the things that we can think of as healthy behaviors include actually having fun while gaming. Hearing your grandchild laugh or be excited about something that they're doing in that gaming space is showing a positive relationship with the game. Talking about gaming friends or strategies, speaking positively about the productive nature and the engaging nature of the game is also a healthy way to see that gaming is a positive impact on your grandchild. And lastly, balancing out gaming with daily life so that they're still doing what they need to do for school. They're still getting their chores done. They're getting the appropriate amount of sleep. All of those things indicate that gaming is not taking over their life, that it actually has a positive or healthy impact. Some of the things that happen when there is an unhealthy relationship with gaming, a few different areas. One includes withdrawal from or lack of real life social interactions and or past interests or passions. So sort of stepping back from the real world, living more in the game than with real life, or engaging or cutting off from engaging in things that they really used to enjoy before. Another unhealthy behavior is that gaming becomes an escape from emotions. So they actually may use gaming to avoid dealing with stress, anxiety, or sadness. So rather than being able to express how they might be feeling, they sort of shut it away and go into their gaming world and shut down from the real world. They may become irritable or anxious or have mood swings or mood changes. You'll hear me mention mood in the next scenario as well. But really, looking at behavior change is an important way to guide how our young people may be doing emotionally in terms of the screens that they're using. And then lastly, that there may actually be a decline in physical or mental health. If their sleep is becoming irregular, if their hygiene is changing, if they're skipping meals, I want to say changing. If their sleep is already lousy and their hygiene is already lousy, then you can't just blame gaming. But if that change occurs and there's a relationship, then you can sort of start to see how one may be impacting the other. Maybe things like increased headaches or fatigue or complaints of not feeling well, signs of anxiety or depression, talking about themselves differently than they had in the past. So those are just some of the things that may be yellow flags for you and your grandchildren's parents to think about in terms of how healthy the relationship is with their gaming systems. The third question, how can grandparents appropriately approach their adult child with their concern? So here's my second mention of curiosity. Curiosity is key. If we can approach adult children with curiosity, respect, and collaboration, as opposed to criticism or control, we can actually help them be able to navigate the challenge that they may be seeing or having with their child. And by not using accusatory or judgmental language, it actually opens the door for a dialogue. So for example, the introduction could sound something like, hey, I've been thinking about Jordan lately. I've noticed that they've been spending a lot of time online, maybe gaming or on social media, and I just want to check in. I'm not trying to overstep, but I care deeply about them, and I was wondering how things are going from your perspective. So it's you noticing, it's you giving respect to your adult child, and also saying, this is something that I really want to pause on and check in on. Yes, Terry.
On that note, a couple of questions came in about our role in when you see warning signs. Are you saying, Erica, that it's not our role to intervene with the child, with our grandchild, but rather do it through the parent?
I think my initial answer mostly is yes. However, I think it sort of is a little bit gray. So I think when we're talking about issues that may be particularly concerning related to safety issues, I think safety issues or issues of danger must immediately go to the parent because they have to be involved from the moment it's noticed to be able to know what to do and how to support their child. I think if it's something that is sort of under the radar or not as problematic, I think there's a way to balance both the conversation that you could have with your grandchild as well as a separate conversation with your child. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a second. Did that answer the question-ish?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So just a couple more things when we're dealing with adult children. We want to make sure to affirm, and Terry, this sort of taps into that, affirm the parent's role as well as respect their boundaries. So we want to make sure that we have the relationship to the best of our ability with our adult children, but that we're conveying that we absolutely respect their parenting choices. They may not be choices that we would have made or that we would make. However, to lean into the parenting that they're doing and to be supportive of how they're approaching things will allow that open communication to stay open, as in terms of really just making sure that the conversation can stay open with your adult child, so that if you do see something or notice something, that relationship is there that you're able to leverage in order to be able to share that concern. So something like that could sound like, I know you're really thoughtful about what's best for Jordan. I wanted to check in and understand more about how you're navigating screen time. So you're really telling them, yes, I respect you. I appreciate you as Jordan's parent. And at the same time, I have a little bit of a concern. Is it something that you've noticed as well? Once you've expressed your concern, and this might be the hardest thing, but such a necessary thing, once you've expressed your concern, you really have to step back as a grandparent. Even if they don't act or respond in the way that you had hoped they would, you really have to tell yourself they're trying their best with the tools that they have, and that if I have a positive and respectful relationship, maybe they'll come back to me and allow me to help them as they continue to navigate the particular situation. Two more things is asking how you can support your adult child. So it isn't just about what's happening with your grand tween or teen, but in many cases, parents don't know exactly what to do. So them hearing that you want to be there to support them and support them trying to figure out how to help their child may actually go a long way. Being part of the solution and not just voicing concerns allows you to be able to build trust, and it creates that collaborative approach to raising your grandchild. So something like that could sound like, is there anything you'd like for me to do or look out for when I'm spending time with them? So being a partner in the process. Terry, did you?
Well, you saw me unmute?
Yes.
Listen, I'm ready to pounce with questions when you stop. If you stop for a second, I'm on it.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
Okay.
Almost done. The last piece with the adult parent is to make sure that you're describing as opposed to diagnosing. So we want to make sure that grandparents are sticking with specific behaviors or changes that you've observed, as opposed to labeling or assuming what's going on. So rather than saying, I think they're addicted to this, or I think they're depressed, or I think social media is making them anxious, to say something like, I noticed that they didn't want to join for dinner when they were gaming. That's not like them. So I wonder how they're doing. So to really say, this is what I've noticed, this is what I've heard, this is what I feel, and then find an appropriate way to be able to express that in a supportive way, as opposed to a judgmental or assumptive way. My last question, but I'll stop here, Terry. The last question I have here is approaching the grandchild, which I think sort of came up in the last question that you asked. So do you want me to go through that really quickly or pause to take?
Pause, if you don't mind.
Pause. Okay, good.
Yeah. So Ellen asked a question. Ellen, if you want to unmute, you can take over from me, or else I'm happy to, because Ellen's question 100% resonates for me, and I feel sure will resonate for others. And that is, when our grandkids come over, especially as they start getting a bit older, but even from 5 and 6, how much time is appropriate to let them be on their iPads and play these apps? And speaking for myself, every time she's on an app, she sees one and she wants me to download it from the App Store, and she's 7. So what do you recommend? Like, what is appropriate? What guidance can you give us about that, please?
So, Rivkah, I don't know if you have some of the stats. I don't have them off the top of my head, but it's certainly something that I could find and share with the group after this. I guess one of the things that I would say is I think a lot of it may have to do with what they're used to or what they're able to do at home. So I think, again, this goes back to the relationship and the conversation and the collaboration that you're having with your adult child to say, when they come to my house, I want them to feel comfortable doing the things that they enjoy doing. And I want it to feel, a little bit like home. I don't want to take away the things that they enjoy doing, but I also want to make sure that I get my time in and that I'm able to really spend and enjoy that time together. So I think part of it is understanding what those limitations are in their home, and then maybe having a conversation depending upon the age of the grandchild, to have a conversation. Hey, when you come over here, like, I don't get to see you very often, or our time together is really special to me and I want to try to get as much of you as possible. Can we talk about maybe putting your phone away, or talk about how much time you want to spend on it, and how much time you and I can spend together not on your phone. So I think part of it is a conversation with the parent, part of it is a conversation with the kids, and maybe the third part, and then Rivkah, I'm happy to have you jump in if you want to. The third part is, as I mentioned earlier, gaming, social media, a lot of times it's really to counteract boredom. So the more that you do, and the more that you interact, and really the more that you like busy their hands with stuff, the more likely they're going to not need to fill those spaces with their games or with their social media. And the more likely they are to then engage with you around something that they enjoy doing. And sorry, maybe another piece that I'm just off the top of my head. So I apologize for jumping around a little bit. But maybe the other piece is, I've also spent time with my own children on their social media apps. And so to say, like, okay, I know you love TikTok so much, or I know you love Instagram, or whatever it is. Can I sit with you and can you show me what you do on it? So they're still in their space that they feel connected to and they enjoy, but they're now inviting you in and you're able to see what they're actually getting or experiencing from it.
Look, you've got huge experience with teens. Oh, sorry, Rivkah, were you going to? Let me just say this. One, because somebody asked this question. Erica, in your experience, so one of our friends asked in chat, what should I do with my 16-year-old grandchild if they're not on their phone or their device? Can you help?
So, well, I'll pause for a second. Rivkah, did you want to jump in at all about the timing? I just want to make sure to.
Yeah, no, I was also going to respond to what you just brought up again, Terry, which is, I think the important two things for me are, when you engage in a conversation with your teen grandchild, it's to come from a place of mutual respect and collaboration. That should be the tone of the conversation around, how could we have boundaries? What would you like to do? I'd like to enjoy things you like to enjoy. All of that needs to feel very much like we are here and we are respecting each other, and I get you, and like I want to be part of what you're doing. It can't feel like there is like control in that conversation or that tone, because they will immediately shut down to that. So I think part of it is hitting the right tone in the conversation, and then part of it is being win-win, that if your 16-year-old grandchild says, what I'd really like to do is I want to go driving around to a couple of stores, or I want to, hang out at the movies, or I wanted this, or I wanted that. It's being a little bit willing to go their direction and then they could be a little bit willing to go your direction. And that could be, and I just want to say the last thing, which is if it's an online experience like what Erica was describing, where you're going to get on and watch something they're doing online, YouTube is the lowest hanging fruit of that. Everyone has probably an ability on your television to stream YouTube. You can stream their YouTube. They can show you who their top favorite, influencers are, what topics they're interested in watching. I bet there's at least one craft that they're probably all interested in, because teens are very interested in DIY projects that are about rando things. One time I remember grandparents were over at our house, and one of our kids was in a sort of YouTube loop about disasters that happen at sea. So one afternoon, the grandparents on the couch with 12, 14, and 16-year-olds, and they're all looking at history documentaries about disasters at sea. That was one of the funnest times. We made popcorn, we had a good time in the house. So to them, that is not actually, I'm sitting and watching videos with you. It's you're appreciating what I like on YouTube. That feels to them extremely special, like you are respecting them. So that's my little sort of piece on that.
Perfect. I don't think I even need to elaborate. I think Rivkah did a great job on the question that you asked, the second question. It's really, again, yeah, Terry.
Oh, Terry said Mr. Beast.
Mr. Beast, yeah. So Erica, first of all, just to take a moment for some housekeeping here. Usually our gatherings, our webinars go for an hour from 7 to 8. And tonight we had said we're going to 8:15, but I do want to acknowledge that we are at 8 o'clock. And so if any of you have to drop off, we thank you so much for coming. We hope you'll stay. Erica, I have to ask you, I know you've got a second scenario, and you've practiced and rehearsed and we've prepared and planned.
I can throw it away.
Would you because you do cover it all in your discussion guide that Sarah has linked to. So are you comfortable if we invite our participants, our friends, to unmute and ask you other questions?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, there you have it. You got the go-ahead. If anybody would like to unmute, Lee Hendler had asked a question. Lee is one of the co-founders of JGN, and I know she had asked some really good questions.
Here's my question. I apologize for not having my video on, but I've got short broadband where I am.
Okay.
And so my question is, how should a grandparent respond if a teen shares a confidential online experience that they do not want you to share with their parents?
Excellent question. So just to go back to one of the things that I mentioned before, which is to know whether it falls in the area of safety as opposed to some kind of social dynamic. If it's in line with a safety issue or concern, then it's critical that you let them know, I'm going to support you in trying to figure out exactly what you need or what to do. But because this is a safety issue, it's important that I get your parents involved. Do you want to go to them with me? Would you like me to go alone? Would you like to go to them yourself? And so I think when we're able to acknowledge the situation, acknowledge the challenge around it, acknowledge our responsibility to take care of them, and then say, I'm here to do this with you, and I'm here to be whatever you need me to be in that moment for you. If it's something that's just like uncomfortable, or they don't know, or they're not sure, I think in some ways we can say, like, I get sometimes these things aren't so fun to share. Let them be able to express what they want to you, again, in a non-judgmental way. Listen with an open ear for what they may be asking in a subtle way from you or from their parents. And then I think it's really just important for you to say, like, how do you, what do you need from me? How can I be there to support you? And how can I help you figure out exactly what to do? maybe it's just that they want you to listen. And maybe it's just that they want to be able to sort of sit on whatever that experience is. But I think really like it's a safety versus non-safety issue. And we have to respect what our grandchildren are asking us to do as long as it doesn't go into the red area of danger. Gail.
Hi, thanks for all this information. It's really useful. Um, can you, I'm wondering if you, so no, knowing what happens in the gaming world a little bit, that some of the grooming, when we use the term, it's not necessarily just sexual predation, it's extremist groups and white supremacist groups, as well as everything else that's happening in kids' worlds online. Do you recommend that grandparents initiate that conversation? So I'm bringing this kind of full circle to Jewish identity.
Yeah.
Do you recommend that grandparents initiate a conversation relating to that topic at all, or about anti-Semitism online, or is it more just a I will respond if something is mentioned, and in all likelihood, nothing will ever be mentioned.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say is
Yeah. So I'm wondering if you recommend grandparents, and if you recommend grandparents to initiate this. And I know that a lot of parents have, I'm in the world of doing workshops on responding to anti-Semitism, and
yeah.
I'm surprised at the number of parents I've spoken with that feel like they want to just kind of respond if their child approaches them about it. And I'm just thinking, like, yeah, but they're processing just the same. It's happening and they're processing and they're making meaning and you're not involved.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering what your thought is.
Yeah, I just want to, I saw Rivkah unmute also, so I want to make sure that I let her jump in. And you're welcome, Sarah, if you want to spotlight Rivkah also. Oh, there you go. Perfect. Don't leave me out here on my own. No,
and
but
I realize this is a long discussion possibly, so I'm asking you for the elevator answer, if that's all if that's all the time you can give. But
yeah, Rivkah, you want to?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, Gail, I think that I myself had this as sort of a bit of an open question. And so one of the small experiments I decided to do was to join a bunch of Reddit groups that teens who are experiencing online hate speech or anti-Semitism have gotten together on Reddit groups where they are helping support one another through a lot of like, yeah, that's what happened to you. Oh, that also happened to me. Or you go, like, we're here for you. Like, really, there's like parts to these Reddit discussion boards that are very, very heartening in that you see a lot of Jewish young people who are like really forming a solidarity and a community around helping each other. And then there are the most shocking things that people are experiencing. And we're talking about, 12, 13, 14, 15-year-olds who are telling these secrets to each other on these chat rings that they are not telling adults. They're not telling their parents. So I think that the intuition you're having that there are unspoken things that people are not bringing to the fore, they're probably there. I'm just wondering if there is a more subtle approach to opening it up that starts with you and your experience or your adult child's experience, where you could either be talking about something you recently read or something you knew someone experienced or something that happened to you as a way of segueing in the conversation rather than going directly to the teen and putting it in the spotlight in a way that makes them close up. I think that's part of the framing that can sort of draw it out, gently, rather than being sort of asked specifically about it in a way that might cause people, conversations to shut down before they start. I don't know, Erica, you might have a little bit more to say about it, but
yeah, no, I think that's perfect. The only thing I would add is, Gail, your grandchildren probably see you as the anti-Semitism expert. And
yeah,
so,
could be, yeah.
So they may already sort of put you in that bucket. and then interact with you in that way. And so the only, like, I would just be careful that, you know, maybe they're not saying things to you because they already, like, that's the space where you live and they don't want to overlive. They don't want to overburden you, or they don't want to worry you, or they don't want to add anything else to your plate. So I think for you or for other people, as Rivkah said, to say like, hey, I was just part of this, you know, social media and teens webinar the other night, and we were talking a little bit about gaming and how people are chatting in games. Have you ever experienced anything where you know, somebody said something weird or shocking? Like, I think when we can use words that are emotion words, we can help identify what it is that they might be feeling or seeing. That may actually open up the conversation, as opposed to saying, you know, are there any anti-Semitic things that you're seeing? Like, obviously, depending upon the age of the child, they're going to know what that means, or what, you know, or not know what that means. But even for older kids who know what that means, they still may not perceive what they're seeing or hearing as anti-Semitism, or might not see it in the way that we would see it. So I think to use some emotion-laden words and maybe help get them to describe what they're seeing or what they're hearing may then allow for you to dig in a little bit more in the conversation.
Yeah, I try to use their language, so I would probably ask them if there's anything cringy that's happened that they've
Yeah.
heard.
We can,
And
we're
you know
gonna
what they would say to you? That question is so cringy.
Eric and Rivkah, we're going to take one more question. And Pam, would you like to? I see you have unmuted. Pam,
I
would
have
you like
unmuted, but I didn't want to interrupt
Oh, okay.
because these are good conversations we're having. But I am not that technically attuned. And so I tried using Marco Polo, and my grandson booted that right out the door. And he said, I've already got too many apps. That was the end of that. And then I said, well, what about, I saw him use Snapchat, and I thought, well, why don't you teach me how to use Snapchat? And just like you said, that is his personal spot. He doesn't want me in it. And so I got booted out of that. And that was the extent of my knowledge. So I was wondering, I do not get to interact with my grandkids very much. And I would love to, I do the grandparent letter once a month, and that sometimes is it. That's all they get from me. So I would like to interact with them more and don't know how.
So one of the things that oh, sorry, Rivkah, do you want to go first?
No, go ahead. You go ahead.
One of the things that I thought of off the top of my head is, I think, you know, when we assume that they want us to be in certain spaces, and then we say, oh, I know that you're using Instagram, can I use it too? I know that you're using Snapchat, can I use it too? We're sort of in their space and in their bubble. So I think what an interesting way to go about it is to say something like, okay, I know you don't want me on Instagram. I know you don't want me on Snapchat, but I got to communicate somehow with you in all of these online spaces that you are in. What app would you like for me to get on and use with you? And maybe they'll say, you know what, like, I don't even want you in an app. I just want to text with you, or I want to do it in this way or that way. But again, sort of letting them lead the conversation, you being a little bit vulnerable and a lot curious in terms of what it is that they would want of you, and then respect them when they make that ask.
Okay,
thank you. And I would add two things, which is one, turn them into your tech guide, meaning like if you are really not savvy with using things, ask them if they can, hey, you know, show me one thing I don't know that I could do on my phone right now that you think would be the coolest thing for me. Not because you are trying to create this world where you're communicating with them, but only as a conversation starter. There's no aim to it. You're not trying to get them to commit to anything. You're just saying, you know me, I don't know a lot about how to use, you know, technology or my phone. Just like be my guide, like in some very, very gentle sense. I would say that's one thing. And the other thing is that if you discover that texting really is the only thing, do more than text with words, because teens don't text with words. They like to text by sending a photo or to send a cute emoji, but putting anything that's long-winded or in text that you expect them to write back to you in text is already kind of a shutdown for them. So even if it's just like you happen to be outside and you saw like some cute bird or something, and you just send them a cute bird and you're like, look what I saw today. That is really low stakes for them, and it's much more likely that they will answer you back than to give them something that is going to feel overwhelming, like it's too committal that I have to write a lot back.
Okay, yeah, they're 2,000 miles away, so they're not going to be my tech guides. This is my tech.
Cute bird.
Erica and Rivkah, we have to end. We are at 8:15, and thank you so much for a most fascinating and sort of freaky session. Totally wonderful. So appreciate your expertise and your goodwill and just your good humor. And to all our friends who join us, thank you so much for your support of the Jewish Grandparents Network and for being here, for giving us your time. You can look for an email from us tomorrow. It'll come at late morning, early afternoon. Often our emails go into spam, but we will send you the recording. Of course, that'll go to everybody who registered, even those who couldn't be here. That's about another 100 or so people. And also we will include the discussion guide again and ways that you can be in touch with Erica and Rivkah. So to all of you, thank you so much for joining us tonight.